It was a quiet evening in Buckland, the kind of evening when the Brandywine River seemed to hold its breath, and the air carried the faint scent of wildflowers and damp earth. Eliren sat cross-legged in the attic of her uncle's home, surrounded by a small fortress of books and maps. The old hobbit had always said she spent too much time with her nose in dusty tomes, but Eliren didn't mind. She loved the feeling of her small fingers brushing over the faded ink, imagining the stories hidden in the map's winding trails and unfamiliar markings. Tonight, however, was different. As she thumbed through a leather-bound book titled Legends of the Green Hills, a brittle sheet of parchment slipped from the spine and fluttered to the floor. Eliren snatched it up, her brown curls bouncing as she leaned closer to inspect it. It was a map, hand-drawn and lined with elvish script she couldn't quite read. In the bottom corner, written in the common tongue, were the words, "To the glade where the trees sing, follow the stars as they take wing. Bring the song that has no end, or Lillimere's magic will descend." Eliren's heart raced. Lillimere Glade. She'd heard tales of it, an enchanted grove far to the east, where ancient trees hummed melodies that could soothe even the deepest sorrow. But those were stories for children, weren't they? The magic of Lillimere had supposedly faded centuries ago, leaving the grove silent and forgotten. Her fingers traced the path on the map. It wove through the hills and forests she'd only heard of in songs sung by wandering minstrels. The idea of seeing them for herself was enough to make her shiver with excitement. But the note's words were clear. Lillimere's magic was in peril. If there was even a chance the glade could be saved, Eliren knew she had to try. The sound of her uncle's pipe tapping against the hearth below brought her back to the present. Tucking the map into her satchel, she padded down the wooden stairs, her mind already spinning with plans. The road would be long, and Buckland was no place to find companions for such a journey. But Eliren was certain of one thing. Her adventure had begun. Eliren left Buckland the next morning before the sun had fully risen, her satchel packed with provisions, seed cakes, a small wheel of cheese, and her uncle's prized blackberry preserves. The map was folded carefully into an inner pocket, its lines burned into her memory. The journey along the East Road was uneventful at first, the familiar rolling hills and dappled woods of the Shire stretching out around her. By the second evening, she reached the borderlands, where the comforting sights of home began to give way to wilder, untamed lands. It was here, as the shadows lengthened, that she encountered her first trial. A low growl stopped Eliren in her tracks. She turned to see a pair of golden eyes glinting from the underbrush. A wolf, no, two, emerged, their sleek forms nearly blending with the twilight. Eliren's heart pounded. She clutched her walking stick, her palms slick with sweat. "Steady now," she whispered, though her voice trembled. The wolves circled her slowly, their movements predatory and deliberate. She raised her stick, unsure what to do, when suddenly a sharp whistle pierced the air. The wolves halted, ears twitching, and a figure stepped from the trees. "Best not try your luck tonight, friends," the figure said, his voice calm but firm. He wore a long cloak of deep green, and his face was shadowed by a hood. A sword hung at his side, though he made no move to draw it. With a low snarl, the wolves retreated into the woods, their glowing eyes vanishing like fading stars. Eliren exhaled, her knees wobbling. "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The man lowered his hood, revealing a weathered face and sharp gray eyes. "You're far from home, little one," he said. What brings a hobbit to these parts?" Alirin straightened, trying to mask her fear with determination. "I'm on a journey," she said, clutching the strap of her satchel. "To Lillimere Glade. Do you know of it?" The man raised an eyebrow. "I've heard the name. Few speak of it now, and fewer still would seek it out. Dangerous times for such a quest." "I don't have a choice," Alirin said, her voice steadier now. She drew the map from her pocket and held it up. "Something's wrong with the glade. If I can help, I must." The man studied her for a long moment, then gave a faint smile. "You've got courage, I'll give you that. My name's Terathor, a ranger of the north. If you'll have me, I'll guide you to the glade, or as close as I can." Relief flooded Alirin. "Thank you, Terathor. I'm Alirin of Buckland." He nodded, then glanced at the darkening sky. "We'll camp here for the night. Best get some rest. The road ahead won't be as forgiving as the one behind." As Alirin settled by the fire Terathor built, she felt the first stirrings of hope. With a companion by her side, the journey seemed less daunting, and her heart was lightened by the thought that perhaps, just perhaps, she was on the right path. The journey to the Whispering Hills was swift, but not without challenge. As they crossed the plains and ventured deeper into uncharted lands, Alirin found herself leaning on Terathor's wisdom. He taught her how to read the signs of the wild, the direction of the wind, the patterns of the stars, and the sounds of distant animals. By the time they reached the hills, Alirin could feel the magic of the place. The air shimmered faintly, carrying soft whispers as if the stones themselves spoke. The hills were dotted with ancient standing stones, each inscribed with elvish runes that glowed faintly in the twilight. "What do they say?" Alirin asked, tracing one of the runes with her fingers. "They tell of a song," Terathor said, kneeling beside her. "A melody of harmony, meant to bind the magic of this land to the hearts of its keepers. Without the song, the magic falters." Alirin's eyes lit up. "Then we're on the right path." Terathor nodded, but looked wary. The runes also warn of a shadow, something that would stop those who try to restore the song. As they deciphered the runes, the whispers around them grew louder, and a deep chill settled over the hills. A shadowy figure emerged from the mist, its form indistinct but menacing. Terathor stepped in front of Alirin, his sword drawn. The shadow hissed, its voice echoing like the wind. "Leave this place. The glade is mine now." Alirin's heart raced, but she clutched the map, remembering the riddle. "Bring the song that has no end," she whispered. She reached into her satchel and pulled out her small whistle, a gift from her uncle. "Distracted," she called to Terathor. Terathor lunged, his blade flashing in the dim light, keeping the shadow at bay. Alirin blew her whistle, a clear, high note that seemed to resonate with the stones. The whispers grew louder, transforming into a harmonious melody. The shadow recoiled, its form flickering. Alirin continued playing, her heart pounding as the melody filled the hills. The runes on the stones flared with light, and the shadow dissolved into the mist, banished by the song's power. With the shadow gone, the path to Lillimere Glade became clear. Alirin and Terathor followed the now glowing trail, arriving at the enchanted grove just as dawn broke. The trees, ancient and towering, stood in silence, their bark dull and lifeless. Alirin stepped into the center of the glade, holding her whistle. Terathor knelt beside her and whispered, "Play the song. Trust your heart." Closing her eyes, Alirin began to play. The melody flowed from her whistle, weaving through the trees. Slowly, the grove awakened. The leaves shimmered with golden light, and the trees began to hum softly, their song joining hers. The glade bloomed with vibrant colors, and a warm, healing light spread across the land. Eliren lowered her whistle, tears streaming down her cheeks. The magic of Lillimere had returned. As the sun rose higher, Eliren and Terathor prepared to part ways. "You've done something remarkable," Terathor said. "The land will remember this." "So will I," Eliren replied, clutching the now faded map. With a final nod, they went their separate ways. Terathor back to his wandering, and Eliren home to Buckland, her heart full of stories to tell. The Song of Lillimere would live on, not just in the trees, but in the hearts of those who dared to believe in its magic.